all 5 of my kids. And, writing is one of those integral skills in a child's education that didn't necessarily come natural to me as a parent and educator. Let me see a hand, and there is a hand raising tool that you have there. So let's see a show of hands for folks who were natural born writers. Yep, I am not seeing a lot of hands going up there. Uh, okay, so you are not alone, and neither is your child in feeling that this important skill doesn't necessarily come naturally or easily. But there are some fun things that you, as a caring, involved parent, can do to cultivate writing and storytelling skills for your child and help their inner author to bloom. If you want to share with us your tips on writing and things that have worked well with your kids too, we would love to hear those. Okay, so first thing that we want to do is make sure that we have the basics covered. This seems like a no-brainer, but there are you know a number of home educators and classroom educators who make the mistake of handing a child a technical writing assignment for which they are not prepared. That's going to lead them to thinking they aren't writers and hate writing. Neither of those is a good outcome, and is easily avoidable. Um, Now, we recommend starting off with storytelling skills, and this is something that we cover in the Schiller Learning curriculum. This is going to start before your child is even a reader. So this is well before that they're going to be putting pencil to paper. Okay. Um, so you want to have your child watch and listen as you read a short story. Give a good performance. Have good diction in as you're reading that. Voice inflection, emotion, and gestures, which you probably noticed that I am big on. I do talk with my hands a bit, but all of these things help to draw the child into the story. And the more that you draw the child into the story, um, the more that they'll be engaged with that and more likely to be able to answer questions about the story and even retell that story. We're often, as parents with really young children, tempted to, have all of the books that we're reading to them be picture books, which are nice. Picture books are beautiful and they serve an important purpose. But it's also important to read selections to the child without illustrations, and let the child develop mind pictures for all of those details, because doing so is actually going to help the brain develop a habit of filling in the details of a story. And then after you're reading, engage the child in questions that will help the student develop self-awareness and make them a better listener. So things like, what was the story about? Where did the story take place? Did the story have any people in it? Who were they? What were their names? What were their ages? And then things that, help to relate that um, story to the child. Are they younger or older than you? Did something good or bad happen in the story? And, chances are there was a challenge in the story because, of course, that is an important part of a plot of the story is, the character overcoming a challenge. But, when you first learned about the challenge, did you know how it was going to be fixed? So raising that awareness in those, early questions when you're reading to the child of those elements of story also. Um, you know, what actions did the character take? What emotions did the characters feel? Have you done any of those things or had any of those emotions? And and then of course questions about the ending. Did it have a happy ending? How did it, come to that conclusion? And you can even ask, do you think the questions that I'm asking you are helping you to become a better listener? Because maybe the child noticed some important details of the story that resonated with them that you didn't think of asking about. So, you know, the storytelling skills start with you reading to the child. That brings us to an important point. Reading quality literature is an important part of your child becoming a writer. So, when they're young, don't feel like you're limited to simple picture books targeted to that child's specific age. You can read much more advanced literature to the child in that family reading time, the family read alouds, and that will also help them to become a better writer. And we do have a blog post um, on the Schiller Learning blog about, some of the ways that those family read aloud times help your child become a reader and writer and have a richer vocabulary. So do check that out also. Um, you also want to be sure that your child is aware of those story elements that we just alluded to. Things like setting, characters, conflict, the theme of the story, what's the moral of it or the point to the story, plot, point of view. um, Is it being told in first, second, or third person? And then things like tone, style as well. And then use that Socratic method for, developing awareness. And then as you get into those technical aspects of what a sentence is, what a paragraph is, what those story elements are, use that Socratic method of questioning to engage the child in conversation. So it's not just all, lecture and worksheet for developing the knowledge of the basics. And then, when it comes to brainstorming, this is really important. Brainstorming is a fundamental basic of writing, and it's important that we really reinforce to the child, especially if your child is a perfectionist, reinforce to them to not worry about the spelling, the sentence structure, the order of the story elements, all of those things that are important ingredients to a good piece of writing. We don't want those things to get in the way of the child getting their thoughts out on paper. So, brainstorming is a great no pressure way of doing that. Our first tip is that writing does not have to be just sitting with pencil and paper. So there are a lot of pre-writing activities that you can do that will make it interactive and make it fun. The, you know, we want to create lifelong learners in our kids. An important part of that is always to, reinforce that learning is fun, even if sometimes it is difficult. There we go. Writing prompts that are interactive and multisensory, one of the things you can do is to use music and have your child choose a song and then, listen and or dance along to it. Um, so that you're getting that multi-sensory aspect, and then have a period of discussion where you talk about what the song means to your child. Of course, depending on the selection, this is either going to be a deep conversation or it could be a silly conversation. Wherever that goes, just let that music selection lead you there. And then, based on that conversation, have the child use the song to create a story. So that is, music is a fun multi-sensory way of learning, and you can indeed include it even in your writing. You can also be dramatic. You can use interactive play as writing prompts. So, your child creating a puppet show, a painting, or acting out a scene engage them in that multi-exploration of the telling of a story. And then from that multi-sensory exploration of it, they can use that as their writing prompt. Um, and they can either write a play or write a narrative to go along with that puppet show painting or acting. You can ask them what their ideal weekend would look like and act that out. That's another fun writing prompt. Um, you can have them imagine that there's a restaurant that serves only their favorite foods. What does it serve? What does it look like? What's the decor? What does the menu look like? You can have them actually create the menu to this imaginary restaurant. And then again, that whole interactive experience serves as a really fun writing prompt. Another thing about the ideal weekend and the restaurant that serves your favorite foods, writing prompts that get your kids to talk about themselves tend to be really successful writing prompts. We all like to tell stories about ourselves and be introspective and think about, the things we like, our challenges, our dislikes, and getting your child put those things to paper book reports are important and they definitely serve an important place in writing and other technical writing assignments. But the writing assignments where we get our kids to talk about themselves, those are pieces of writing that will become keepsakes. So, they tend to be writing prompts that your kids enjoy more and will respond to better. And then, over time, you are going to be really glad that you have those. Okay. Another writing activity that's, where the child is not just sitting and putting pencil to paper or typing if you have an older child who is typing their assignments. Which I have to say, I do enjoy when that transition takes place and my child starts writing on the computer. It makes it a lot easier to check their work and make changes. There's pros and cons to everything. But let's talk about subject and predicate sentence strips. So this is a fun activity. This is something I first encountered when my oldest child had taken a writing workshop with Paige Menton. She has fabulous writing workshops, but this is something the entire class had enjoyed. And it was strips of poster board so that taking that poster board horizontally and cutting it into strips. And you can actually at some teacher supply stores get large sentence strips. So if not poster board, you can get it inexpensively even at the dollar store, scissors, ruler, and cut those out and simply make a collection of sentences. So you can write sentences that are come straight from the story, or that you ask a your child a series of questions to create the sentences, or have your child simply make up a series of sentences. And you can experiment and do it different ways. Um, and then go through all of those sentences and identify where the subject ends and the predicate begins, where those meet, and then you can draw a diagonal line and then cut along that diagonal line. I like the diagonal cut as opposed to just a straight up and down because it helps the child spot um, which is a subject and which is a predicate card. Whereas if you had just cut up straight up and down, you wouldn't be able to really differentiate that between the beginning and ending of that card. So that diagonal cut just helps. It's a visual cue to the child. And then they can go ahead and, either randomly rearrange those subject and predicates to create a silly story, or try to, very strategically rearrange those subject and predicates to create a a meaningful story, something that's not silly and nonsensical. But the subject and predicate sentence strips, I think you'll have a lot of fun with those. Okay, another tip on helping your child to become a writer is to use the story mountain. And this is something that is taught in the Schiller Learning curriculum. It's one of the ways of getting kids to think about the elements of a story. And so with the story mountain, just move this over here. Uh, so you're looking at the mountain and you've got a base camp, you've got the climb, the peak, the descent down the other side, and then a new base camp. And okay, the story mountain is printed in the it's in the language arts kit B. So it is, if you have Language Arts Kit B, you will find that in there. Oh, and by the way, the Language Arts Kits. So we've got Language Arts Kit A, and that covers pre-K, generally going to be pre-K kindergarten, depending on when you start with your child. So Language Arts Kit A, it is teaching letter sounds, letter names, beginning to end simple short vowel words, beginning to read those CVC words. If your child knows their letters, their sounds, and is beginning to read short vowel words, then they're probably ready for a Language Arts Kit B. That's generally going to cover first through fourth grades. Both of those kits are available in either the physical format, so you've got the printed books and the physical materials, or in um, we have digital kit options. With those, it's the PDF downloads of all of that same printed material, downloads of all of the songs, as well as some printable materials. So if you have the manipulatives, those digital kits are a great way using the language arts program with what you already have. Okay, so back to that story mountain. So a story mountain describes the start, rise, fall, and end of a story. So the beginning of the story is how the story starts, and that is your base camp. The climb up the mountain is what happens on the way to the high point of the story. And then at the peak or top of the mountain, that's going to be the most exciting part of the story. And then we have the climb back down. And those are the things, the details of resolution after that exciting part of the story. And then the new base camp, that is how the story ends. What's different at the end of the story than there was at the beginning of it? Um, and so often for kids who are very physical in nature, imagining a story as a mountain climb can help them engage with those different parts of the story. So that is a great creative way of looking at story development. Okay, and then our fourth tip for helping your child to become a writer is to use writing prompts. We talked about a couple of multisensory prompts. Um, so we'll look at a few more here. The writing prompts, what they are going to do is to help relieve pressure of writing. Sometimes, we give our child a technical assignment and ask them to come up with a topic for it. And just that beginning detail of deciding what they're going to write about can create a writer's block. And so the writing prompts help the child to get over that. Um, Again, writing prompts that ask your child information about themselves will often be really successful and get your child to become prolific writers. One of the things you can do is to ask your child, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? What was the situation? Why did you decide to act? What did you do? What was the outcome? And again, this is something that, you know, you're going to be glad that you have your child's writing about this. And then periodically, you can have your child review those old pieces of writing that they did using these writing prompts and then create new pieces so that they can have, a look over time of brave things that they've done. This is also helpful to remind kids of times that they've acted in a brave way. A fun writing prompt for older as well as younger students, but asking, what's the backstory to this conversation? And so, with what's the backstory, you can create a fake text conversation, and you've seen things like this in memes where you see the speech bubbles and some crazy exchange. You could even pull some of those memes off and use those as your text conversation, and then ask your child to tell you the story that led up to this exchange and what happens next, what's the resolution of it, and use that fake, that created fictional text conversation to create a story. You can have a lot of fun with that one. And then another fun writing prompt is to doodle your way to the story and ask your child to draw a picture. You can even draw the beginning of a picture. I have a series of books for my kids where it gives you half a picture and the child finishes the other half and then writes a story about it. And that's one of the things that all of my kids have enjoyed using to create a story. And then again, ask your child to tell you about the doodle, giving that, verbal storytelling and then commit it to paper. By the way, storytelling skills, it's important to develop those oral storytelling skills before the child is trying to put story to paper. Um, And a nice transition of the child being an oral storyteller to a writer is for you to do narration, and where the child is telling you the story and then you are committing that to paper. And then you can read it back to them, or have them read it back to you once they become readers. Okay, our fifth tip on helping your child to become a writer is to have the child write with a purpose. So, purpose can create passion, and it can really create a drive behind completing a piece of writing. And then we suggest varying the purpose of the assignments over time in order to keep things fresh. So it's not always that same um, writing assignment, change it up. So, one of the things that you can do on a regular basis is to have thank yous. Thank yous are not just for gifts. And it- one of the things you can do is to ask your child to think about, the things that they enjoy most in life and the people that they enjoy spending time with the most. Um, and, if it's a person that they enjoy spending time with, or something that they do enjoy that someone had given them, maybe 4 or 5 years before, to just out of the blue write a thank you letter to that person for their time, for their experience, for the things that they share with your child, for the ways in which they enrich your child's life, and write a thank you letter. And this exercise, as opposed to the thank you note in, response to a gift, which is certainly important, but this is going to help to cultivate a mindset of gratitude in your child. And keeping copies of these, this is something else that will your child will enjoy looking back on as they get older. And this is something that you could do maybe every couple of months. Have your child do a random thank you letter. Something else that you could regularly put into that rotation is petitioning. Having your child select an issue that is important to him or her, and then research the pros and cons of their position. We all have things that we feel passionately about, um, but we don't always do the research that comes along with those positions. So it's good to have the child select an issue, think about what's important to them, and then look at the pros and cons. Eh, Excuse me. Find out who can make a difference in this issue, and then write a letter to that influencer. Yeah, and this does not necessarily have to be a political thing. This could be your child would love a a certain flavor in a brand of cereal that they like. So, maybe they're going to write the company about that, or they would love to see a particular storyline included in a show that they watch. So, absolutely, political things, it's never too early to have kids start thinking about, because politics is simply the public expression of personal values. One of the my favorite writing assignments in Language Arts Kit B, and it's a family writing assignment, is to create a family preamble that reflects your family values. And that's something that's nice to, I always recommend doing it on good paper and framing it. It's something that is nice to have displayed somewhere in your home that you can reference and look back at. But those personal values, politics are simply a public expression of that. So, there's all kinds of areas of life where it's great to have influence. So, getting your child to start thinking about how they can do that and executing on that can give them a sense of purpose and passion in writing. And another purpose in writing is journaling. And an important part in journaling is that you model journaling. So start writing a daily journal yourself. If you don't journal, this is something you're going to appreciate having, and encourage your child to do the same. And then you can share with your child some of your journal entries and have them um, do the same. It's important, though, that sharing with the journaling is optional. You want to honor your child's privacy and not require that they share um, every every journaling entry that they have created. Um, Journaling helps the child to just develop that flow of putting thoughts to paper and recording details. Another writing assignment with purpose, and this is nice to do on a rotating basis. Maybe do this as a quarterly newsletter, is to create a family newsletter or magazine, and then actually share it with friends or relatives. And this can include a whole variety of different styles of writing. You can have recipes, you can have interviews, there can be fiction, nonfiction, you can have personal narratives. So your newsletter or magazine can be a collection of the different types of writing, book reviews, movie reviews, um, reviews of your child's favorite television show. So there's a lot of different things that you can include in here. And genealogy research, this is something that um, will be of interest to all of those family members that you are sharing it with. So that's always something nice to include as well. Okay. Um, so I hope that you will take some of these ideas, share them with your kids, implement them. Um, I think you'll find that they really do contribute to helping your child become a writer. And then, if I think we got to all of the questions that were in, yes. And then if you have ideas that have worked well with your kids, writing prompts or strategies that have helped your kids thrive, we'd love to hear about them and share them with other homeschool parents. Yeah, and so an important thing when you're working with your child on writing is editing is important, and it's definitely an important part of the writing process. We just don't want the editing process to demoralize or discourage the child. Absolutely, we want to be, correcting errors in um, spelling, sentence structure, uh, lacking story elements, things of that nature as they get older and start getting into research reports, correctly structuring their bibliography, all of those things. We just want to do it in a way that um, it's just a factual kind of aside that, for instance, when the way that we suggest correcting when a child writes backwards numbers is to simply show them, okay, well, this is how you wrote seven. This is how seven is written either on the number card or in the book. Show them how it's written. So how would you do that differently next time? Um, that kind of just a matter of fact, um, no judgment, no disapproval. This is how it's done. That kind of approach to editing, absolutely, really important to the child's development of writing skills. Okay, so you ask your kids what they want to focus on in their editing for that particular session instead of correcting all errors. That's a great idea. Yeah. And that's a theme that you'll find throughout Montessori education and Schiller learning is that child-led learning and having the child take part and take ownership in their education. And that's a nice way of doing that. Okay. And then the story mountain, I have to confess that I'm not sure which of the 4 books in Language Arts B that is in, but I do know it is in one of them. If you just if you, okay, so you downloaded book 5, it wasn't in there. Just try the other ones and use in the PDF, it's really easy because you can just search for, M mountain and it'll pop up to that pretty quickly. Okay. And thanks, Amanda. Amanda does not remember either off the top of her head which of the language arts B books that is in. No, but writing, it really can be just a lot of fun and a creative, enjoyable activity. It does not need to be torture. Um, so I hope that these activities will help you and your child enjoy writing together. Let's see. Okay, well, I am so glad that you enjoyed the session. It was an honor to have you here with us today. If you are watching the replay and have questions, you can reach out to us at our toll-free number, that 888-556-6284. You can also email us at support@chillerlearning.com. Comment on the video down below. We can also respond to you there as well. And if you enjoyed these tips and are interested in education of children, be it your own or anyone else's, do hit that subscribe button. And I hope that you'll enjoy future tips as well. And we don't want you to miss any of those. check out our schedule. We have upcoming sessions listed in that email that you got today. Something new that we're doing this year is we are going to have some two sessions that are designed for you to watch with the kids. So we have some of those coming up in February. Okay, awesome. So it looks like we did get to all of the questions. Thanks again for joining us. We will see you next week. Bye. Oh, oh yes. So yeah, and I believe, just check the schedule, but I believe that next week is one of the sessions to watch with kids. Amanda, do you happen to have the schedule in front of you? I can't pull it up while I am doing the screen sharing. I think next week is
Just a second, I'll pull the calendar up.
I think it's on presidential trivia. I don't want to promise that it is.
Next week is presidential trivia.
It is. Okay, I thought it was. So we're going to do a session on presidential trivia. So that will be a lot of fun and, great activity for the kids leading up to President's Day and, by coincidence, our President's Day sale. Oh, that is an interesting question. We've never had that question before. Can you send an email which states, I attended a class for writing with Montessori teaching? Yes, we can create that. Uh, can Michelle, can you message me your can you message if you would like a certificate, if you can just put into the chat your email address and that you would like that, because the chat does save and then we can send that out afterwards. Awesome, thank you. Okay, awesome guys. Well, thanks again. Oh, very neat. You are in Alaska. Yes, I did. I got that in direct message, so I will be able to send that. Well, thanks again, guys. It's always a pleasure to have you join us, and we will see you next week.